Clara Moreno never imagined that accepting an invitation to a wedding in India would change her life forever. At 55, the retired nurse from Portland had devoted 3 decades to caring for others, sacrificing her dreams of traveling the world. 2 years ago, her divorce from Michael, a strict accountant who considered international travel a waste of money, had finally freed her to explore the destinations she'd only seen in travel magazines. "I finally have the chance to live for myself," she'd repeat to friends, her hazel eyes alight with determination. The divorce had been bitter but fair. She kept their charming bungalow in Portland's Laurel Hills neighborhood and a considerable portion of their retirement fund, enough to fuel her newfound freedom. The invitation came through Aisha Khan, a 28-year-old event planner from Mumbai whom Clara had met 3 months earlier in a Facebook group called Women Traveling Solo in India. Aisha introduced herself as a tour guide, fluent in English and specializing in showing the real India to Western visitors. Her photos showcased a vibrant young woman, always smiling, posing alongside delighted tourists in front of the Taj Mahal or bustling spice markets. "My dear Clara," Aisha wrote in near-perfect English, "I invite you to something very special." The invitation was tempting. Her cousin Vikram's wedding in Jaipur, a traditional 3-day Rajasthani celebration that tourists rarely witnessed. "You will experience true Indian culture," Aisha promised, assuring Clara she'd be treated like family. What made the offer irresistible were the carefully planned details. Aisha had researched Clara's social media profile, noting her interest in Indian history, her passion for photography, and her recent separation. "After everything you've been through, you deserve a magical trip," she wrote in one of their many private messages. Clara, who had casually mentioned in a post that she felt lost after her divorce, found an attentive listener in Aisha. The young Indian woman responded quickly, offering encouragement and sharing stories of other Western women who'd found renewal after visiting India. "The land of the Maharajas heals broken hearts," Aisha would say with a poetry that touched Clara deeply. Their conversations evolved from tourism to personal confidences, Aisha asking about Clara's nursing career, her adult children, Emma in Seattle and Lucas in Chicago, and her financial situation post-divorce. "You are a strong woman," she constantly praised. "You deserve all the good things in life." When Aisha made the official wedding invitation, she included details a cautious person like Clara would need. The flight would be paid for by the groom's family, a tradition, she explained. Clara would stay at their ancestral Haveli in Jaipur, immersed in an authentic experience no hotel could offer. "You will be like my American sister," Aisha promised. Clara meticulously researched trips to India, reading forums by women who traveled solo, and consulting her doctor about vaccinations. Everything seemed legitimate. Aisha sent photos of the family, the Haveli with its ornate courtyard, and a video of the bride showing off her lehenga amid wedding preparations. Clara's friends had mixed opinions. Laura, her best friend of 20 years, thought the trip was adventurous and exciting. Ellen, always cautious, asked pointed questions. "How well do you know this, Aisha?" But Clara was determined. "I'm 55, not 25, she argued. "I can take care of myself." What Clara didn't know was that Aisha had been studying her profile for weeks. The young woman knew Clara's former workplace, the names of her children, the inheritance from her mother 2 years earlier, and, most crucially, the emotional vulnerability she sought in potential victims. Aisha was not who she claimed. Her real name was Nisha Gupta, 31, part of an organized network that perfected the art of identifying, attracting, and exploiting Western women in vulnerable situations. The Facebook group was a hunting tool run by 5 operatives who created fake profiles to build relationships with targets. The family in the photos was real, but not Aisha's. Images stolen for social media accounts of unsuspecting people. The Jaipur wedding existed, but it was not the intimate family event promised to Clara. 3 days before the trip, Aisha sent an urgent message. "Clara, my dear, there's been a small change due to family issues." The wedding had been moved to Alwar, a smaller town about 100 kilometers from Jaipur. It will be even more authentic, she assured her. Fewer tourists, more tradition. Clara, with her bags packed and documents ready, saw no issue. The prospect of a more authentic experience thrilled her. She photographed her passport and sent it via WhatsApp to Emma. Your mother's finally taking her dream trip. On March 15th, 2025, Clara woke at 4 a.m., donning dark jeans, a light cotton kurta she'd bought for the trip, and her favorite wool scarf. At Portland International Airport, she took a selfie in the departure area and posted it on Facebook. Finally, India, here I come. Unbeknownst to her, Nisha was messaging her accomplices. The American is arriving today. Everything is ready. Emirates flight EK-236 landed at Mumbai's Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj International Airport at 3:10 p.m. local time, 20 minutes late. Clara gazed at the humid, chaotic cityscape. Skyscrapers looming over slums, the air thick with honks and spice. She'd read her Lonely Planet guide, memorizing Hindi phrases, Namaste Dhanyavad Muyi Hindi Nahi Adi. Aisha was to meet her at arrivals with a sign. Clara Moreno, welcome to India. After passing immigration, the officer smiling at her tourist visa, Clara emerged into the crowded arrivals hall, signs in Hindi, English, and Marathi waving around her. Taxi drivers swarmed. Madam, taxi? Where to? After 20 minutes of searching, worry crept in. Aisha's phone went to voicemail, her WhatsApp messages showing one gray tick, undelivered. A friendly-looking young man, about 25, approached, speaking English with a thick accent. Excuse me, are you Clara? He introduced himself as Arjun, Aisha's cousin. Aisha had to rush to the hospital. Her mother's very ill, he said, his expression worried. She sent me to pick you up. Clara felt a tightness in her chest. Is she very ill? She asked, concerned. Arjun nodded sadly. Yes, but the wedding's still on. The family's waiting in Alwar. The story made sense, and Arjun knew details only Aisha could have shared. Clara's nursing career, her divorce, her love for photography. Aisha tells me everything about her American sister, he said with a warm smile. He explained they'd drive directly to Alwar, an 8-hour trip with interesting stops. You'll see the real India, he promised, echoing Aisha's words. His white SUV, air-conditioned and comfortable in Mumbai's March heat, was a relief. He stowed Clara's luggage in the trunk and insisted she sit up front for a better view. You are our guest, he said. We treat American guests like queens. During the first 2 hours, Arjun was the perfect guide, pointing out the gateway of India, explaining Rajasthani wedding traditions, and stopping at a temple near Thane so Clara could photograph its sandstone carvings. He taught her Vagatam, welcome, and praised her quick learning. But his questions grew personal. Her pension, her home's value, whether Emma and Lucas knew her whereabouts. At a dhaba in Thane for dinner, Arjun insisted on paying. You're our guest, he repeated, then casually asked, did you bring money for family gifts? American women love to give gifts, don't they? Clara mentioned her 500 euros in cash and credit cards for emergencies. During dinner, Clara noticed inconsistencies. Arjun's story about Aisha's mother shifted. First a heart problem, then a fall at home. When she asked which hospital, he hesitated before saying, JJ Hospital. After dinner, he spoke urgently in Hindi on his phone. When Clara asked if it was about Aisha's mother, he nodded and changed the subject. The second half of the trip grew tense. Arjun was quieter, answering in monosyllables. The SUV veered onto an unmarked road. Shortcut to avoid Jaipur traffic, he said, but Clara's map showed no such route. Around 10 p.m., they arrived at what Arjun called Alwar, but lacked the historic forts she'd researched, featuring only simple houses on poorly lit streets. Alwar is bigger than you think, Arjun said. This is the new part of town. The house was a 2-story building with faded yellow walls. At the gate, 2 women in saris, introduced as Aunts Mira and Lada, waited, barely acknowledging Clara and speaking only Hindi. Where is Aisha? Clara asked, growing uneasy. Tomorrow morning, Arjun replied. You need a rest. It's been a long journey. The upstairs room was sparse, a simple bed, an old wardrobe, a window with metal bars. For your safety, Arjun said when Clara questioned the bars. It's not safe here at night. He left, promising to return with Aisha. Sleep well, Clara. Tomorrow the real adventure begins. His tone carried a hint of menace. Alone, Clara tried Aisha's number. No signal. The promised Wi-Fi didn't work. Downstairs, the women's voices rose in heated Hindi, followed by a car driving away. Peering through the bars, Clara saw Arjun's SUV vanish. The house lights went out, leaving her alone with two strangers who didn't speak English, in a place she couldn't locate, with no way to contact the outside world. "What have I done?" she whispered, fear chilling her bones. For the first time since arriving in India, Clara wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. Clara Moreno woke on her third day in India with a gnawing sense that something was fundamentally wrong. She'd slept poorly, startled awake by footsteps in the hallway, hushed Hindi voices, and cars coming and going. Each time she strained to listen, silence returned, making her question her paranoia. The morning brought more confusion than answers. Clara Moreno woke on her third day in India, the air heavy with the scent of dust and distant spices, her heart gripped by a gnawing dread that something was profoundly wrong. The night had been restless, punctuated by strange noises, footsteps creaking in the hallway, hushed Hindi voices, and the rumble of cars arriving and departing in the Alwar darkness. Each time she strained to listen, silence returned, leaving her questioning her own paranoia. The sparse upstairs room, with its barred window and rickety wardrobe, felt more like a cell than a guest quarters. Morning light filtered through the bars, casting stark shadows across the faded blue walls, amplifying her unease. Aunt Mira, one of the women who'd greeted her the previous night, brought a tray of strong chai and paratha for breakfast. Her sari, a muted green, rustled softly as she set the tray on a small table. When Clara asked, "Where is Aisha?" in halting English mixed with gestures, Mira shook her head, muttering words in Hindi that Clara couldn't understand. The older woman's eyes avoided hers, her movements brisk and detached, as if Clara were an inconvenience rather than a guest. Around 10 a.m., Arjun appeared, but without Aisha. His demeanor had shifted starkly from the charming guide of the previous day. Gone was the warm smile. His face was now a mask of formality, his eyes avoiding hers. "Aisha is still in the hospital," he said quickly, his voice clipped. "Her mother is very, very sick. She may die." Clara's nurse's instinct kicked in. "I'm so sorry," she said, her voice soft with genuine concern. "As a nurse, maybe I can help?" Arjun seemed to consider her offer for a moment, then shook his head. "You're a tourist, not a doctor. It's different here." His dismissal stung, but it was the constant changes in plans that unnerved her most. The wedding, Arjun now claimed, was postponed for 3 days due to the family emergency. "But you stay here," he insisted, his tone firm. "The family wants to meet you. It would be rude to leave." Clara frowned, her unease deepening. "Maybe I should go back to Mumbai and wait in a hotel until things are sorted," she suggested, her voice steady despite the knot in her stomach. Arjun's face tightened, his agitation palpable. No, that would be a great insult to the family. They prepared so much for your visit." To distract her, he offered a tour of the town. "You'll love Alwar's history," he said, forcing a smile. But as they left the house, Clara's suspicions grew. She asked passersby in basic English, "What's the name of this town?" The answers were confusing. Some said Bawadi, others shook their heads, not understanding. This wasn't the Alwar she'd researched, with its grand forts and bustling markets. The streets here were narrow, lined with modest shops and concrete homes, far from the vibrant heritage Aisha had promised. During the tour, Arjun took her to minor sights, a crumbling temple, a local bazaar, but always in a hurry, steering her away from others, especially tourists. At a small shrine, Clara tried to approach a group of British tourists, hoping to ask about the area, but Arjun intervened, pulling her away. "Those people aren't trustworthy," he said sharply, his hand firm on her arm. A pattern emerged, chilling in its clarity. Arjun always knew where she was. When she slipped into a cafe's restroom alone, he appeared minutes later, knocking impatiently. When she wanted to buy postcards at a market stall, he insisted on accompanying her, hovering as she paid. His questions grew more intrusive, probing for exact figures. How much cash did you bring? What are your credit card limits? How much is your house in Portland worth? When Clara hesitated, he smiled thinly. Aisha wants to know. She's planning a surprise for you. Clara's heart sank when she mentioned calling her children, Emma and Lucas, to share details of her trip. Arjun shook his head. The local phone system is down, he said. It'll work tomorrow. She tried her cell phone discreetly, but there was no signal and the battery drained faster than usual. Arjun had promised to charge her, but forgot to bring it. Back at the house in the late afternoon, more inconsistencies piled up. Mira and Lada, supposedly Aisha's aunts, treated Arjun with a deference that felt unnatural for family. They called him Saab or Sir, terms of respect Clara knew from her research were rarely used among relatives. During dinner, a simple meal of dal and roti, she overheard Lada whisper in Hindi, using the phrase Amiri American, which Clara recognized from her phrasebook as rich American. The realization hit her like a cold wave. She wasn't a guest of honor, but a target. That night, Clara tested the waters. I'm feeling ill, she told Arjun, clutching her stomach. I need to see a doctor. His reaction was telling. Not concern, but irritation, his jaw tightening. American women are always sick, he muttered, then added, there are no good hospitals here. You'll feel better after sleep. When she insisted, his tone hardened. You're not going anywhere until Aisha arrives. The finality in his voice brooked no argument. Alone in her room, Clara pieced together the disturbing puzzle. The wedding that had lured her to India seemed non-existent. Aisha, her only contact, remained mysteriously absent. Arjun knew intimate details about her finances, details she'd shared with Aisha online, including her retirement savings, the value of her Portland home, and the fact that her children lived far away and wouldn't expect contact for a week. I'm not here as a guest, she whispered in the dark, her voice trembling. The words she couldn't voice aloud crystallized in her mind. Prisoner. Around 2 a.m., voices downstairs jolted her awake. Not just Mira, Lada, and Arjun, but other men she didn't recognize, speaking in Hindi with occasional English words. Money, passport, America. Panic surged as she recalled Arjun taking her passport for safety on the first day. She hadn't thought to ask for it back. Without it, she was trapped in India. The reality of her situation sharpened into focus. She wasn't a tourist invited to a wedding, but the victim of an elaborate scheme, her hosts not hospitable but predatory. The question that kept her awake was, what do they plan to do with me? On her fourth day in India, a revelation shattered Clara's remaining illusions. She woke at 5:30 a.m. to a heated argument downstairs. Men's voices raised in Hindi, Arjun's among them. One voice, speaking broken English, caught her ear. She's too old. Not what we ordered. This will cause problems. Her blood ran cold. Around 8 a.m., Arjun entered her room, his expression grim, devoid of his earlier charm. Clara, he said without preamble, sitting in the room's only chair, his posture signaling a serious conversation. We need to talk. Aisha isn't coming today, he began. When Clara opened her mouth to protest, he raised a hand. Aisha doesn't exist. Her heart thudded as he continued in careful English. I am Aisha. I created her profile, used my cousin's photos from Mumbai, and spent months chatting with women like you in those Facebook groups. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. Claire's world spun. What? She managed, her voice trembling. What do you want from me? Arjun sighed, as if her question were trivial. At first, we just wanted your money. American women always have plenty. But then he paused, his eyes cold. Other plans came up. What plans? Clara's voice shook, dread pooling in her stomach. There are men here, Arjun said, his tone clinical. Rich men with special desires. They pay well for Western women, especially older ones no one will miss. The horror of his words hit like a physical blow. You want to sell me? She whispered, nausea rising. Sell is a crude word. Arjun replied calmly. You'll have a new life with a rich man who'll care for you. You said you were lonely. Clara stood, her legs unsteady. I want to go home. Now. That's not possible, Clara, Arjun said, unmoved. You're not going anywhere. I have rights. I'm an American citizen, she protested, her voice rising. Your rights don't matter here, he said, his tone hardening. No one knows where you are. Your children think you're on vacation. Your friends aren't expecting to hear from you for weeks. It was true. Clara had told everyone she'd be offline for a week to immerse herself in the culture. No one would worry until at least the following week. Arjun rose and moved to the window, his silhouette framed against the bar glass. Someone's coming this afternoon, he said. His name is Vikram. He's very wealthy, with businesses in Delhi. He's looking for a companion. A companion? Clara repeated, her voice hollow, knowing exactly what he meant. You'll be nice to him, Arjun continued. You'll smile, show him you're a good American woman. If he likes you, you'll go with him. And if I say no? Clara asked, her heart pounding. Arjun turned, his eyes cold and calculating. That's not an option, Clara. The lock clicked as Arjun left, sealing Clara Moreno in the sparse upstairs room of the Alwar house, its peeling yellow walls and barred window, now a stark prison. At 55, the retired nurse from Portland trembled on the narrow bed, her heart pounding with the chilling clarity of her situation. She had been lured into a human trafficking network targeting vulnerable Western women. The psychological profile Aisha, or rather, Arjun, had built of her was chillingly precise. Divorced, lonely, with distant children, financially secure, and yearning for a new chapter. Every question Aisha had asked over months about Clara's isolation, her sparse contact with Emma and Lucas, her retirement savings, her travel plans, had been meticulously cataloged, weaponizing her vulnerabilities. Around noon, Mira and Lada brought a bundle of clothes, a fitted turquoise salwar kameez, a small pot of coal, and a bottle of cheap jasmine perfume. When Clara refused to dress, Mira, taller and stern, gestured sharply, her eyes narrowing to make it clear this was no request. Clara complied, her hands shaking as she slipped into the unfamiliar garment, the fabric cool against her skin but heavy with dread. At 3 p.m., a car's engine rumbled outside, followed by male voices chatting in Hindi downstairs. Footsteps climbed the creaking stairs, and the door swung open. Arjun entered, accompanied by a man in his 60s, impeccably dressed in a tailored kurta, his gray hair neatly combed, his eyes appraising Clara like a merchant inspecting goods. This is Clara, Arjun said in Hindi, then switched to English. This is Mr. Vikram. Vikram approached, his gaze methodical, assessing her with the precision of a seasoned buyer. To Clara's surprise, he spoke fluent English, tinged with a Delhi accent. You're older than I expected, he said bluntly, circling her. But American women age well. His scrutiny made her skin crawl. Are you healthy? Any illnesses? Clara stood frozen, shock and fear paralyzing her tongue. Vikram mistook her silence for demureness. I like shy women, he said to Arjun, a faint smile curling his lips. She'll learn to behave. She's very obedient, Arjun lied smoothly. A good American housewife. She can cook, clean, and she was a nurse. A nurse. Vikram's interest sharpened, his eyes glinting. That's useful. My mother is ill and needs care. He turned to Clara. You'll take care of my mother, won't you? Clara's silence stretched, her throat tight. Vikram frowned. Doesn't she speak? She's just nervous, Arjun interjected. New situation, you know. Vikram nodded, his expression softening slightly. Listen, Mrs. Clara, I'm a good man. I'll treat you well. Nice house in Delhi, fine clothes, good food. All you have to do is be a good woman. I want to go home, Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. Vikram laughed, a dismissive sound that echoed in the small room. America is cold and lonely, he said. Here, you'll have sunshine, family, a man who cares for you. Why go back to nothing? His words cut deep, reducing her life, her Portland bungalow, her photography, her distant children, to insignificance. The casual cruelty left her reeling. How much? Vikram asked Arjun in English, his tone businesslike. 15 lakh, Arjun replied. She's old, Vikram countered. 10 lakh. She's American, educated, a nurse. 12 lakh. 11 lakh. Final. Arjun nodded, sealing the deal. They were negotiating her worth, as if she were a commodity, each word a blow to her dignity. Vikram turned to Clara one last time. I'll return tomorrow to collect you, he said. Get ready. Your new life begins. The door closed behind him, leaving a suffocating silence. Arjun lingered, his expression almost smug. You're lucky, he said. Vikram is rich. You'll be fine. How can you do this? Clara asked, tears spilling down her cheeks. I'm a human being, not a thing. You were already nothing in America, Arjun said, his voice devoid of emotion. Divorced, lonely, forgotten by your children. Here, at least you'll be needed. My children will look for me, she said, clinging to hope. Will they? Arjun tilted his head, his eyes mocking. When did you last speak to Emma? 3 weeks ago. Lucas? A month. He knew her life's details better than she'd realized, each fact a shard of glass. They'll think you're enjoying your vacation. The truth of his words crushed her. Emma and Lucas, busy with their careers and lives in Seattle and Chicago, wouldn't expect contact during her adventurous vacation. She'd told friends she'd be offline for a week to immerse herself in India's culture. No one would worry for days. Why me? She asked, her voice breaking. You were perfect, Arjun said, almost proud. Vulnerable, but not penniless. Lonely, but not desperate. Old enough to be grateful. Young enough to be useful. He'd studied psychology, he admitted, to identify ideal victims. You're the 7th Western woman this year. How many others? Clara pressed, dread pooling in her stomach. They're living their new lives, he said vaguely. Some are happy. Others, he shrugged. Others are learning to be happy. That night was the worst of Clara's life. The reality sank in. She was being sold to a man who saw her as property. No rescue was coming. She was in a foreign country, ignorant of its laws, unable to speak Hindi, with no allies. Worse, Arjun's network had perfected this scheme, luring, capturing, and selling Western women. She wasn't the first, nor would she be the last. Yet, amidst the terror, a spark of defiance flickered. Clara began to plan her escape, though the odds seemed insurmountable. No passport, no money, no knowledge of Alwar, and surrounded by captors who viewed her as merchandise. The 5th day dawned with Clara in a state of controlled panic. During her sleepless night, she'd obsessed over every detail, searching for a way out before Vikram returned. Her passport and 500 euros were in Arjun's possession, kept for safety. She knew no Hindi beyond basic phrases and had no sense of her location. Around 7 a.m., Mira brought breakfast, para then chai, but this time, Clara noticed details she'd overlooked. Mira carried an old mobile phone tucked into her sari's folds. More crucially, she left the bedroom door ajar, a first since Clara's arrival. Clara decided to shift tactics, moving from terrified victim to someone seeking connection. When Mira returned for the empty plate, Clara forced a smile and said, Dhanyavad, thank you, in Hindi, one of her few learned phrases. Mira looked surprised, but nodded, a flicker of warmth in her eyes. Encouraged, Clara pointed to herself and said, Clara, then gestured toward Mira. Mira, the woman confirmed, a small smile breaking through. Mira, children? Clara asked in halting English, mimicking a cradling gesture. To her surprise, Mira replied in broken English, yes, 3 children. Boys. His fragile connection sparked an idea. Over the next few hours, Clara worked to build rapport. She showed Mira photos of Emma and Lucas from her wallet. Arjun had returned it, minus her passport and cash. Mira, in turn, pulled out her phone, displaying grainy images of her sons. You, good mother, Clara said, pointing to the photos. A mother too. Very sad, very afraid. Mira's face softened, her gaze lingering on Clara. She glanced nervously at the door and whispered, You don't tell Arjun. For the first time, Clara saw compassion in her eyes, a crack in the facade of her captors. Around noon, Arjun appeared with more clothes, a formal maroon lehenga and jhumka earrings. "Get ready," he said. "Vikram arrives at 4 p.m. "Please, Arjun," Clara pleaded, grasping at any shred of humanity. "You have a family. How would you feel if someone did this to your sister?" "My sister isn't foolish enough to travel alone to India," he said coldly. "You made stupid choices." As Arjun left, the door's lock clicked, but didn't fully engage, leaving a sliver of a gap. Clara Moreno, trembling at 55, sat on the narrow bed in the Alwar house, its faded walls closing in like a trap. The air was thick with the scent of dust and jasmine from the cheap perfume Mira had forced her to wear. For 5 days, she'd been a prisoner, lured to India by a non-existent wedding. The unlocked door, was it a mistake, or had Mira, the aunt who'd shown a flicker of compassion, intervened? At 2 p.m., raised voices echoed downstairs. Arjun arguing with another man in Hindi, punctuated by English phrases, police asking questions, American embassy, be careful. Clara's heart raced. Could someone be searching for her? Had Emma or Lucas raised an alarm? Or had the authorities stumbled onto the scheme? At 3:30 p.m., half an hour before Vikram's expected arrival to claim her, Mira burst into the room, her sari swishing, her eyes darting nervously behind her. "You run now," she whispered urgently. "Arjun gone. Men talking. Trouble for you. Run." "Where to?" Clara whispered, her voice shaking. Mira pointed to the barred window. "Road there. Walk to Big Street. Find police. Say you lost." "My passport." "No passport. Just run now." Mira's urgency was palpable. Then, in a gesture Clara would never forget, she unwrapped her own dupatta and pressed it into Clara's hands. "Cover head. Look like Indian woman. Go," Clara murmured, "Dhanyavad," her voice thick with gratitude, and draped the dupatta over her head. Mira had loosened a section of the window's bars, supposedly for safety, revealing a steep but feasible descent across the roof of an adjacent building. Despite her age and paralyzing fear, Clara summoned a strength she hadn't known she possessed. She climbed through the window, her hands gripping the rough concrete, and scrambled down the sloping roof into a narrow alley, the din of male voices arguing inside the house, spurring her on. She couldn't tell if they'd noticed her escape. Following Mira's instructions, Clara hurried toward what seemed like a main street, the dupatta shielding her face. The Alwar afternoon buzzed with life. Vendors hawking chai, children darting through dusty lanes, auto rickshaws honking. Her attempt to blend in as an Indian woman worked partially. Passers-by glanced but didn't linger. If she was lost, terrified, with no map or phone signal. After 20 minutes of weaving through alleys, she spotted a police jeep parked outside a small market, its blue and white stripes a beacon of hope. 2 uniformed officers chatted with a shopkeeper. "Police, help me," Clara shouted in English, running toward them, pulling off the dupatta to reveal her unmistakably Western face. "American. Kidnapped. Help." The officers turned, startled. "American tourist?" one asked. "Lost. Kidnapped," Clara repeated, breathless. "Help." Unbeknownst to her, an international investigation was already underway. The U.S. Embassy had been alerted by families of other Western women who'd vanished in India, and Interpol was tracking a pattern of disappearances tied to social media groups targeting vulnerable women. Clara's escape on March 19th, 2025, was perfectly timed to expose a sprawling criminal network operating in Rajasthan. At the Alwar police station, the officers' initial skepticism, lost tourists were common, shifted to shock as Clara recounted her ordeal. She wasn't just lost, Inspector Rajesh Sharma later told reporters. She described a systematic scheme, fake identities, forged documents, a commercial operation. Clara's mention of Arjun and the house triggered immediate recognition. Neighbors had reported suspicious activity at the property, foreign women seen with men who prevented interaction. 3 hours after her escape, police raided the house, finding evidence that confirmed their worst fears. Arjun, whose real name was Vikram Patel, 34, had fled, but he'd left a laptop containing a chilling database of Western women. "What we found was shocking," said investigator Priya Desai. "The laptop held profiles of hundreds of American, Canadian, and European women, saved Facebook chats, psychological analyses, and market value assessments based on age, wealth, and family ties." The network operated under Saffron Dreams Tourism, a fictitious company with a polished online presence, but no legal registration. They'd crafted multiple fake identities, including Aisha Khan and others like Priya, targeting spiritual seekers, Anjali, focusing on widows, and Ria, aiming at career women. Clara was the 23rd documented victim in 3 years. Of the prior 22, 11 had been sold to men across India and neighboring countries. 8 had escaped or been ransomed, and 3 remained missing. Vikram Sharma, the man who'd bought Clara, was arrested the next day at his Delhi mansion. Police found 2 other women there. Sophie Laurent, a 49-year-old French woman married to him for 9 months, and Ellen Brooks, a 53-year-old Canadian who'd arrived a month earlier. Both were in psychological shock, conditioned to believe their families had abandoned them, resistance futile. "They were broken," said social worker Anjali Mehta. "They thought they had no way out." The network operated on 3 tiers: hunters like Arjun, who lured victims online, processors who held women during preparation, and distributors connecting with buyers. Parallel investigations by the FBI and the U.S. revealed the network's deep research into Western societies, exploiting high divorce rates, retiree isolation, and social media patterns signaling emotional vulnerability. "They were criminals, but brilliant amateur psychologists," said Dr. Sarah Klein, a criminologist at Stanford studying the case. "They weaponized loneliness." The legal process spanned multiple jurisdictions. Arjun was captured a week later at the Nepal border, attempting to flee. Vikram and 5 others received sentences of 15 to 25 years. Clara's case spurred systemic changes. India's government, under global scrutiny, tightened tourist safety protocols, training border police to spot trafficking victims. Clara returned to Portland on March 25, 2025, a shadow of the woman who'd left. "She's different but stronger," Emma said in a rare interview. Clara channeled her trauma into advocacy, working with anti-trafficking NGOs to warn women about online predators. "If my story saves one person, it wasn't for nothing," she said. Social media platforms like Facebook and Instagram rolled out algorithms to detect predatory patterns, especially those targeting vulnerable demographics with travel or romance scams. Mira, who'd helped Clara escape, was placed in a witness protection program and later granted asylum in the U.S. with her 3 sons. In court, she revealed her own coercion. "They told us Western women wanted love. I didn't know the truth until too late." She now advocates for Indian women trapped in similar schemes. The investigation uncovered $2.3 million in profits over 5 years, with women sold for $5,000 to $25,000 based on age and status. 3 years later, Clara, still in therapy, speaks on travel safety and online predation. Her case, studied in criminology courses, underscores how vulnerability can be exploited. "Loneliness makes us targets," she said in a recent lecture, "but real connections, not fantasies, heal us." Clara Moreno's name appeared in newspapers not as a victim, but as a survivor whose courage dismantled a trafficking network. Her escape on March 19, 2025, became a milestone in India's fight against human trafficking, driving policy changes and global awareness. 5 years on, it remains a reference in police training and advocacy, a testament to resilience triumphing over exploitation. As U.S. prosecutor Emily Chen noted, modern trafficking doesn't just happen in alleys. It's on our screens, exploiting the loneliness anyone can feel. Based on documented patterns of international trafficking and online predation techniques from Interpol and global law enforcement,